Thank you very much for joining us. India and China are both accusing the other's soldiers of firing shots in a new confrontation along their disputed Himalayan border. China says Indian troops crossed the line of control in the western region on Monday and opened fire, and its soldiers took what it called countermeasures. But a short time ago, India's military laid the blame with China, accusing it of provocative measures to escalate tension. Both sides usually avoid using firearms in the area. We'll be live with Elizabeth Ranam in India's capital, New Delhi, in just a moment. But first to Katrina Yu in Beijing. So, Katrina, once again, we have conflicting claims from both sides about what's happening at that border region. What is Beijing saying happened in this latest incident?
That's right, Folly. Well, according to China's military, this is the second time they say that Indian troops have violated this border agreement in the past 2 weeks. Now, they say that this took place in the eastern Ladakh area, which is close to China's Tibetan Autonomous Region along this border area. And according to the Chinese side, there were some Chinese troops which approached the Indian side in order to conduct negotiations. And then they say that some Indian troops fired at the Chinese side. And as a result, China's military were forced to take countermeasures, although we don't know exactly what form those countermeasures took. And also we don't know whether there were any casualties involved in this incident. Now, China has called this a serious provocation and violation of the border agreement. We know that things between these two sides have been tense for some years, but if this is true, this will be one of the first times firearms have been involved in about 40 years. There had been agreement to keep firearms out of it, but we do know that things have been escalating with both sides building up troops for the past 2 months, staring at times at each other eyeball to eyeball along this disputed area. Both sides unable to agree over this line of actual control, which is further complicated by this complex topography along the region. Now, we know firearms have not been used, but things did escalate in June, where there was a skirmish between both sides and at least 20 Indian soldiers were lost. China says that it's conducting negotiations and dialogues with the Indian side, and there have been talks at different levels for the past few weeks, including very high-level talk in Moscow between both defense ministers from both countries just last Friday. But it seems that those talks have been very limited in terms of what progress they have been able to make. And India also says that China has captured 5 Indian civilians, and China's foreign ministry, when asked about this, said they didn't have any information, saying simply that they were continuing dialogue with India, that they wanted peace. But China's foreign ministry has predictably laid the blame for escalating tensions completely with the Indian side.
Thank you for that, Katrina Yu in Beijing. Let's go to Elizabeth Ranam now for the view from India. Liz is in New Delhi. So as we've said, Liz, both sides usually avoid using firearms, and India is denying being behind this latest escalation.
Hi, Folly. The latest statement from the Indian Army shows just how intractable this latest standoff between the two countries is. The Indian Army is saying that at no point did it transgress across that line of actual control, the unofficial border between the two countries, or resort to any aggressive means, including firing. They are saying that it was the Chinese army that tried to close in on one of India's positions, and when they were dissuaded by their own troops, that they fired a few rounds in the air. They're also saying that despite grave provocation, that Indian troops exercised great restraint, that they are committed to disengagement, to de-escalation, and that China continues to undertake provocative activities to escalate. And they're also saying that the latest statement by the Chinese army about the firing is an attempt to mislead its domestic and the international audience. Now, this happened just 3 days after that meeting between the two countries' defense ministers at the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit. It was the highest level meeting between the two countries since the current standoff began in May. And we also had both sides saying that the other agreed to de-escalate the situation after that. But we have had so many rounds of talks at different levels since May, and each time they maintain that they are committed to disengaging, and yet we've had more incidents, including the most serious between the two countries in June, when those 20 Indian soldiers and an unknown number of Chinese soldiers were killed. We do have a meeting between the foreign ministers of the two countries coming up again at that Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit on Thursday.
Thank you for that, Elizabeth Branham, live for us in New Delhi.